Okay, this is a very brief video, Module 1, Financial Management 5130. I'll be doing a series of videos, just very quick ones, just to give you a general overview of what each module is about. Okay, so this is Module 1. So Module 1 is an introduction to accounting, so don't worry, I'm not trying to train everybody to be accountants. Think of this course as basically accounting for the non-accountant. So don't let those debits and credits in the online textbook scare you silly, but the idea is to give you more of an appreciation for what the accounting people in your organization are actually doing to put together the financial information so that you can actually end up with financial statements. So the idea is to build on it so you see where the information is coming from. You're just not looking at the balance sheet and the income statement without having a good understanding of how they were actually developed. So that's the point here. The other important thing with this module is to understand that there are various accounting standards. So each jurisdiction around the world, each country has its own accounting standards. And in addition to that, in accounting itself, there are three main strands of accounting, if you will. There's financial accounting, which is accounting that focuses on producing your financial statements for the external, for your members and stakeholders. Then there's managerial accounting, which is basically producing internal reports. So this is where you would have your budget versus actual report that's produced monthly and quarterly and so on. And then there's taxation, which is a whole nother matter. And we'll talk about that in a later module. So in addition to each country's own individual accounting standards, you also have something that's relatively new that's come on the scene in the past few years. It's called International Financial Reporting Standards, more commonly known as IFRS. And the idea with the development of these standards is that you would have global comparability. So if you picked up a set of statements from a company in Germany, they would be prepared on the same basis as a company in Canada or the US. So the way it works is organizations typically have the option to either adhere to their own country standards or they can adopt IFRS. There is a couple of exceptions to that, though. One, certainly in Canada, is that if you are a credit union or another organization that's deemed to be publicly accountable, there's a definition for that and you'll see that in the course. If you're publicly accountable, you have to adopt IFRS. So all credit unions in Canada, for example, have adopted IFRS. So I won't say more about that now. You'll read more about that in the course. So in this module, the idea here is to gain a basic understanding of how the accounting transactions are recorded, and that's illustrated through the online text and the PowerPoints. You also should discuss with your Chief Financial Officer or equivalent which standards your cooperative adheres to. So is it your own jurisdiction, which would be GAAP in the US, or accounting standards for private enterprise in Canada. Then consider the role that financial statements play in your cooperative. So do you think they actually demonstrate accountability to stakeholders and members, employees, and so on? It's important to be aware of the fact that while cooperatives are a very different business model than a corporation or a partnership or a proprietorship, there's no unique accounting standards specifically for cooperatives. So given that's the case, it's important also to be aware that there are certain situations, and you'll see through the readings in the course, where some of the accounting standards may not necessarily be totally appropriate for cooperatives. But nevertheless, even regardless of whether the standards are appropriate or not, at this point in time, all cooperatives have to adhere to either the accounting standards for their own country or to international financial reporting standards, IFRS. So that concludes the brief overview for Module 1. So good luck with reading the text and the online materials for this module.